Emma Collins had a plan. Sort of. Don't screw this up, she whispered to herself in the rearview mirror, dabbing at a lipstick smudge like her life depended on it. Because, in some ways, it did. This job wasn't just a job. It was the job. The shiny new position she'd worked herself ragged to land, the one that promised stability, growth, and, her favorite perk, health insurance that didn't feel like a scam. New city. New office. New Emma. That was the mantra. She'd even bought new shoes for the occasion. They pinched her toes like hell, but they were power heels, according to the overexcited saleswoman, and who was she to argue with fate? Emma inhaled, exhaled, and stepped out of her car with all the confidence of a woman who definitely wasn't internally screaming. Inside the glass building, everything gleamed. Polished floors, walls of windows, sleek furniture, the kind of place that smelled like ambition and overpriced coffee. "Hi. You must be the new marketing associate," chirped a perky receptionist with impossibly white teeth. "Welcome to Bennett and Company. Let me get your badge." Emma forced a smile. "Thanks. I'm Emma. First day." Slightly terrified but excited, she said, the nervous laugh that followed betraying her calm facade. The receptionist grinned knowingly. "Don't worry, you'll love it here. Well, mostly. Watch out for the espresso machine, though. It's temperamental." "Noted," Emma said, clutching the badge like it was a golden ticket to a better life. She was halfway to the elevators when her phone buzzed. A text from Julia, her best friend and personal life coach/enabler, blinked across the screen. "Julia *, you survive?" Emma *, barely. "No disasters yet. Julia *, give it time. Remember, if anyone's cute, flirt. Networking. Emma *, this is not that kind of job. Julia *, every job is that kind of job if you're confident enough." Rolling her eyes, Emma shoved her phone into her bag and took the elevator up to the 12th floor. The office was intimidating. Rows of spotless desks, glass-walled meeting rooms, a break area with a smoothie station that looked like it belonged in a luxury spa. A guy with an easy grin and a tie that had clearly been tied in a rush waved at her. "You must be the newbie. I'm Max, marketing analyst/office gossip extraordinaire." "Emma," she said, relieved to meet someone who didn't look like they'd chew her up for sport. "Welcome to the madhouse. Need a tour? Or coffee? Or both?" Before she could answer, a voice rang out across the room, deep and smooth, sending an unexpected chill down her spine. "Max, stop monopolizing the new hire. There's work to be done." Emma froze. No. No, 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 no. It couldn't be. But when she turned toward the sound, her stomach plummeted. Standing in the doorway of the glass-walled corner office, arms folded, eyes cool and unreadable, was Liam Bennett. Her Liam. Or, more accurately, her ex-Liam. The one she'd dated for nearly 2 years. The one she'd dumped, on his birthday, of all days, because she'd been scared of commitment and needed space. Time had been cruel in the most unfair way. He looked better than ever. Dark hair slightly longer, jaw even sharper, a suit that probably cost more than her car. And those eyes, the same piercing green that had once looked at her like she was the only person in the room, were now colder than ice. Emma's mouth went dry. Max, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air, cheerfully gestured toward Liam. "And that," he said, "is our fearless leader. Mr. Bennett himself. Don't let the scowl fool you. He's only scary before his 3rd cup of coffee." Liam's gaze locked on hers, and for a split second, Emma swore she saw something flicker there, recognition, maybe even hurt? But then it was gone, replaced by that same cool, detached expression. "Collins," he said, his voice perfectly even. "My office. Now." Max blinked. Is that, like, good or bad?" Emma swallowed hard. "I guess I'll find out," she muttered, legs suddenly feeling like jello as she followed Liam into his office. The door clicked shut behind her, muffling the hum of the busy floor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emma shifted her weight from one heel to the other, silently cursing those stupid shoes. Finally, Liam leaned back against his desk, arms still folded, and said, "So, you work here now?" His tone was neutral. Too neutral. The kind of neutral that was more dangerous than outright anger. Emma forced a laugh that came out strangled. "Surprise? Small world, huh?" He arched a brow. "Small world," he repeated flatly. She fiddled with the strap of her bag, desperate to fill the silence. "I didn't know you owned this place. Congrats, by the way. Bennett and Company has a nice ring to it. Very professional." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile, more like the ghost of one. "It's been 3 years, Emma. A lot has changed." She nodded, biting her lip. "Yeah, I can see that." Another silence stretched between them, thick and awkward, until Liam finally pushed off the desk and moved behind it, sliding into the leather chair with practiced ease. Look, he said, his voice cool but not cruel. Whatever history we have, it stays out of this office. You're here to do a job. Do it well, and we won't have a problem. Clear? Emma's pride flared, even as her stomach twisted. Crystal, she said, forcing her chin up. Good. He opened a folder, effectively dismissing her. Max will get you settled. Welcome to the team, Collins. Emma turned to leave, cheeks burning. As she reached for the door, his voice stopped her. Oh, and Emma? She froze. Yeah? Try not to quit before my birthday this time, he said, his tone maddeningly casual, but his eyes, when she glanced back, were sharp enough to cut. By the time she made it back to her desk, Max was waiting, eyebrows raised. So, how'd it go? You still alive? He didn't, bite or anything. Emma dropped into her chair, resisting the urge to bang her head on the desk. Oh, he bit, she muttered. Just not in the fun way. Max laughed, clearly oblivious to the storm brewing inside her. Don't worry. He's a softie deep down. You'll see. Emma forced a tight smile, but inside, her thoughts were a mess. New city. New office. New Emma. Yeah. Right. More like old ghosts. Old wounds. And a boss who hated her guts. This was going to be a very, very long first week. Emma survived her first week. Barely. By Friday, her feet were blistered, her inbox looked like a horror movie, and she had memorized exactly how long it took for the temperamental espresso machine to decide it hated her: 3 button presses, 2 passive-aggressive beeps, and then a dramatic shutdown. But worse than caffeine deprivation? Working directly under Liam Bennett. He wasn't a tyrant, exactly. No yelling, no tantrums. He was just precise. Demanding. The kind of boss who noticed everything: a typo, a missing comma, a slightly too casual tone in a client email. And when those sharp green eyes landed on her mistakes, Emma felt 17 again, fumbling through excuses while her pride burned. The kicker? She couldn't tell if he was being harder on her because she was her, the ex who'd left him with a half-eaten birthday cake and an apologetic text, or because he was like this with everyone. Max claimed it was the latter. Emma wasn't so sure. Earth to Collins, Max sing-songed, leaning over her cubicle wall. Are you coming to happy hour, or are you planning to die here at your desk? Emma blinked at her screen. I have at least 2 more emails to. Nope, Max interrupted, grabbing her laptop and snapping it shut with a flourish. The weekend doesn't start until we mock Liam's taste in scotch at O'Malley's. Non-negotiable. She groaned. Max. Don't Max me. It's team bonding. Plus, rumor has it Liam might actually show up tonight, which means you can study his human side. Assuming he has one. Emma rolled her eyes but let herself be dragged out. It wasn't like she had plans anyway, unless reorganizing her sock drawer counted. O'Malley's was exactly the kind of bar where bad decisions were made: dim lighting, sticky floors, and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since 2004. The marketing team had claimed a corner booth, drinks already in hand. Emma found herself sandwiched between Max and a bubbly account manager named Sophie, who wasted no time filling her in on office gossip. And apparently, Sophie whispered dramatically, Liam turned down a date with a model. Like, an actual runway model. Can you imagine? Emma forced a neutral smile. Maybe he's just busy? Sophie snorted. Busy, sure. Or emotionally unavailable. The man practically has "do not disturb" tattooed on his forehead. Emma's laugh came out sharper than intended. Yeah. That sounds about right. Before Sophie could question her, the bar's door swung open, and the chatter around the booth dimmed. Liam had arrived. Of course he looked unfairly good, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, the picture of effortless confidence. He nodded to a few colleagues, grabbed a drink from the bar, and, to Emma's absolute horror, headed straight for their table. Mind if I join? He asked, voice smooth as ever. Max practically shoved Emma down the bench to make room. Of course, boss. We were just talking about how much we love working here. Isn't that right, Collins? Emma shot him a death glare. Thrilled, she deadpanned. Liam's lips quirked, like he was fighting a smile. Glad to hear it. The conversation flowed around them: client gossip, weekend plans, a heated debate over whether pineapple belonged on pizza, but Emma was hyper-aware of every inch of space between her and Liam. Every time his arm brushed hers when someone shifted in the booth, her stomach did an embarrassing little flip. She hated it. And she hated that he seemed completely unaffected. By the time the group spilled out of O'Malley's a couple of hours later, Emma was tipsy, exhausted, and more confused than ever. Max waved down a cab for her, and she slid into the back seat with a sigh of relief, only for the door to open again, and Liam to slide in beside her. Her heart stuttered. What are you? You live downtown, right? He said smoothly. I'll make sure you get home safe. Emma blinked. I can take care of myself, you know. I know, he said simply, and somehow that made her feel even more off balance. The cab ride was quiet, save for the hum of traffic. Emma stared out the window, trying to ignore the fact that his shoulder brushed hers every time the car hit a bump. When the cab pulled up in front of her building, she fumbled for her wallet, but Liam handed the driver a bill before she could protest. You didn't have to. Good night, Emma, he said, his tone unreadable, and then he was gone, walking away before she could find the right words. Monday came too quickly. Emma buried herself in work, determined to ignore the way her stomach flipped every time Liam walked past her desk. She avoided his office unless absolutely necessary, communicating mostly through emails and post-it notes. But avoidance only worked for so long. By Wednesday, a big client presentation loomed, and Emma found herself standing outside his office, clutching a stack of revised slides like a peace offering. She knocked. Come in, came the familiar voice. Liam didn't look up as she entered, his focus on the spreadsheet glowing on his laptop. What is it, Collins? Finished the revisions you asked for, she said, setting the stack on his desk. He flipped through the pages, expression unreadable. Better, he said finally. Still needs tightening in a few spots, but it'll do. Emma bristled. You know, thank you wouldn't kill you. His eyes flicked up to meet hers, sharp and green and infuriatingly calm. Thank you, he said, his voice cool. Will that help? She crossed her arms. Not when you say it like that. A ghost of a smile tugged at his lips. You haven't changed. And you have, she shot back. His smile faded, replaced by that controlled mask she hated. Yes, he said simply. The weight of that single word hung in the air, thick and heavy. Emma opened her mouth to reply, to apologize, maybe, but a knock at the door broke the moment. Max stuck his head in. Hey, boss, the client's on line 1, oh. Sorry. Am I interrupting something? No, Liam said, his tone clipped. Emma was just leaving. And that was that. That night, Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look. This was supposed to be a fresh start. No drama. No complications. But with Liam Bennett as her boss, no complications wasn't just impossible, it was laughable. The big presentation was in 3 days. Which, in Liam Bennett's world, meant nobody in the marketing department was allowed to sleep, breathe, or even think about anything else until every pixel, bullet point, and transition was perfect. By Monday morning, the office buzzed like a hive. Emma sat at her desk with her 4th cup of coffee, massaging her temples as she tried to make sense of a spreadsheet that looked like a cruel joke. Smile, Collins, Max whispered, sliding a donut onto her desk. We're halfway to hell already, may as well enjoy the ride. She gave him a flat look. If I survive this week, I'm quitting caffeine forever. Blasphemy, Max gasped. Don't let Liam hear you say that. Coffee is basically a love language here. Emma snorted but took a bite of the donut anyway. Sweet carbs couldn't fix her life, but they were a decent start. By Tuesday, exhaustion had turned the team delirious. Sophie started talking to her plants. Max threatened to elope with the copier. Someone programmed the office printer to spit out motivational quotes at random. But Liam? Liam was maddeningly composed. He strode through the chaos like some kind of corporate general, barking precise instructions, reviewing drafts, and never losing his cool. Except with her. Because every time Emma so much as breathed wrong, he was there with that sharp tone and that look, the one that made her feel like a rookie even when she'd done nothing wrong. By Wednesday evening, after a 12-hour day that had left her eyes burning, Emma snapped. It started with an innocent question. Collins, Liam said, leaning against her desk. Did you update the client notes with the revised figures I sent? Emma looked up, bleary-eyed. Not yet. I was finishing the pitch deck you asked for first. His brows lifted, just slightly. Those figures were a priority. Something in his calm, cool tone, that subtle, infuriating disappointment, lit a fuse in her sleep-deprived brain. Well, forgive me for not being a mind reader, she shot back, voice sharp. Maybe next time you could try using actual words instead of cryptic emails at midnight. Around them, the office went silent. Max's head popped up over his cubicle wall like a gopher sensing danger. Liam's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed maddeningly even. Step into my office. Now. The second the door closed behind her, Emma spun on him. You know what? No. I'm not doing this, she said, arms crossed. You can't just snap your fingers and expect me to magically keep up with whatever's going on in your head. His eyes narrowed. What's going on in my head, he said slowly, is that we have one shot to land the biggest client of the year, and I need my team on the same page. I am on the same page, she snapped. But maybe if you treated me like a human instead of... Instead of what? His voice was low now, dangerous. Instead of the girl who left you, she blurted. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Liam froze. Emma's heart pounded in her chest, but there was no taking it back now. That's what this is, isn't it? You can't stand me being here because every time you look at me, you see that stupid 19-year-old who broke your heart. And you hate that you still. Enough, he bit out, cutting her off. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. The air between them crackled, thick with years of unsaid words and unresolved anger. And then, suddenly, Liam was moving, crossing the room in 2 long strides, crowding into her space until her back hit the edge of his desk. Do you think I haven't tried to forget, he said, voice low, almost raw. Do you think I don't hate myself for still, he broke off, jaw clenching. Emma's breath caught. For still what, she whispered. His eyes met hers, green and burning. For still wanting you, he said, the words like a confession and a curse all at once. Before she could think, before she could breathe, his mouth was on hers. The kiss was nothing like she remembered. It was sharper, hungrier, like years of frustration and longing bottled up and finally breaking loose. Her hands fisted in his shirt. His fingers slid into her hair. The world narrowed to the heat of his body, the taste of coffee and mint, the sound of her own racing pulse. When they finally broke apart, breathing hard, reality came crashing back. This is a bad idea, Emma said, voice shaking. The worst, Liam agreed, his forehead still resting against hers. And yet, he echoed, and then his mouth was on hers again. The next morning, Emma woke up in her apartment with a sore throat, a bruised lip, and the terrifying realization that her very bad idea had turned into an even worse one. Because kissing Liam? One thing. But what they'd done after that? Yeah. She buried her face in her pillow and groaned. At work, they were both silent. Professional. Polite. Painfully polite. To anyone else, nothing had changed. But to Emma, every glance felt loaded, every accidental brush of his hand set her skin on fire. Max, of course, noticed immediately. You're acting weird, he accused during lunch. Emma choked on her salad. I'm not. You are, Max said, narrowing his eyes. Did something happen? Oh my God, did you sleep with? Nope, Emma cut in, standing so abruptly her chair screeched. Absolutely not. Mind your business. Max grinned. You totally did. The client presentation was a blur. Emma delivered her parts flawlessly, even as her brain screamed at her to focus. Liam handled the Q&A with his usual calm authority, and when the clients left impressed and ready to sign, the entire office erupted in cheers. That night, there was champagne, music, and the rare sight of Liam actually smiling, not the polite corporate smile, but a real one. Emma caught herself staring. He caught her, too. And for one reckless, impossible second, she let herself think maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a disaster waiting to happen. But then, reality returned. Because Liam was her boss. And she was the girl who'd left him once. And no matter how good that kiss, or that night, had been, some things were too broken to fix. Right? Emma had a plan. A terrible plan, but still, a plan. Step 1, pretend that nothing happened. Step 2, focus on work. Step 3, absolutely, positively do not think about Liam Bennett. By Monday morning, she was already failing. He was everywhere. In the elevator, in meetings, standing by her desk with that infuriating calm that made her want to either throw something or kiss him again. And the worst part? He was perfectly fine. While she was busy internally combusting, Liam was cool, professional, and maddeningly unbothered. At least, that's what she thought until Wednesday, when she caught him watching her across the conference room table. Just for a second, just a flicker, but enough to make her stomach drop. Great. Fantastic. Wonderful. The universe, of course, wasn't done torturing her. By Thursday, they were on a train headed to a client meeting 2 hours away. 2 hours. In the same train car. Sitting side by side. Emma spent most of the trip gripping her coffee cup like a lifeline while Liam calmly reviewed his notes. This is ridiculous, she muttered under her breath. What is? He asked, not looking up. Nothing, she said quickly, then shoved in her earbuds and stared out the window, trying not to think about the way his sleeve brushed her arm every time he shifted. The meeting went fine. The ride back was quiet. Too quiet. At one point, the train jolted and Emma nearly tumbled into him. He caught her without thinking, one hand steady on her waist, and for a heartbeat, just one, neither of them moved. Then he let go. She sat back. And they didn't say a word for the rest of the ride. That weekend, she went out with Max and Sophie for drinks, desperate for a distraction. It worked, until she spotted Liam at the bar. Of course he was there. Because fate hated her. He wasn't alone. A tall, polished brunette was standing close, laughing at something he said, her hand on his arm. Emma told herself it didn't matter. She told herself she didn't care. She also told herself she only ordered another drink because the first one was too weak, but even she didn't believe that. Earth to Emma, Max said, waving a hand in front of her face. You're glaring at your ex like you want to set him on fire. Should I call security, or are you just working through something? I'm not glaring, she said through gritted teeth. Sophie raised a brow. Honey, you're practically sending smoke signals. Emma forced a smile and turned back to her drink. It's none of my business. He can do whatever he wants. Sure, Max said, smirking. And I only watch reality TV for the intellectual stimulation. She lasted 20 more minutes before caving. I'm going home, she announced, standing abruptly. Max blinked. It's 9 o'clock. Yeah, well, I'm old, she muttered, and stalked out into the cool night air. The next morning, she woke up to a text. Liam ***, we need to talk. My office. 9 a.m. ***. Great. Perfect. Just what she needed. You can't keep doing this, he said the second the door closed behind her. Doing what? She asked, arms crossed. This, he said, gesturing vaguely between them. Acting like nothing happened and then glaring at me in public when you see me talking to someone else. I wasn't glaring, she lied. His eyes narrowed. Emma. She huffed. Fine. Maybe I was glaring. But in my defense, she was very handsy. One corner of his mouth twitched, like he was fighting a smile. You're jealous. I am not jealous, she said, cheeks heating. Yes, you are, he said, stepping closer. And you know what? So am I. Every time Max hovers around your desk, every time some guy in the office makes you laugh, I hate it. Her breath caught. That's not fair, she whispered. No, he said quietly. It's not. For a moment, the room was silent except for the sound of their breathing. Then, softly, tell me you don't feel the same, and I'll stop. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. But no words came out. Because she couldn't. For a while, they tried. Tried to keep it quiet. Tried to keep it casual. Tried to pretend like it didn't mean anything. It was almost easy during the day, when the office was full and they were surrounded by other people. But at night, when everyone had gone home, when it was just the two of them in the glow of computer screens and city lights, it was impossible. One night, after a particularly brutal round of edits, Emma leaned back in her chair and groaned. I think my brain is melting, she said. Liam glanced up from his laptop. Take a break. She swiveled her chair to face him. What, and ruin my streak of suffering? He smirked. Come on. 10 minutes later, they were on the roof, sitting on the edge with takeout containers and a shared bottle of wine Sophie had left in the office fridge. This is nice, Emma admitted, looking out at the city lights. Liam glanced at her, something soft in his eyes. Yeah, he said. It is. For a moment, she let herself imagine it, what it would be like if this wasn't complicated, if they could just be. But reality had a way of crashing in. The next morning, someone in HR sent out an email about the company's strict no fraternization policy, and Emma's stomach dropped. She avoided Liam all day. That night, he showed up at her apartment. Are we really doing this? She asked, heart pounding. He hesitated. Then, I don't know. But I can't seem to stop. And neither could she. The breaking point came a week later, at the company gala. She'd spent hours getting ready, telling herself it was for the event, for networking, for the photos, anything but him. But when she walked in and saw him across the room, tall and sharp in a black suit, and his eyes found hers instantly, she knew. The night was a blur of polite conversations, clinking glasses, and stolen glances. And then, toward the end of the night, a colleague, a tall, handsome guy from finance, asked her to dance. She said yes. Halfway through the song, she looked up to see Liam standing by the bar, his jaw tight, his gaze burning. She excused herself and went outside for air. He followed. What was that? He demanded, his voice low and sharp. What was what? She shot back. Dancing with him, Liam said. Letting him. Oh, so you can flirt with whoever you want, but I can't dance with a coworker? That's different, he said, stepping closer. Why? Because you say so? Because you're. He stopped himself, but it was too late. Because I'm what, Liam? She pressed, her voice trembling. Because I'm yours? Is that it? Am I yours? For a moment, he just stared at her, his chest rising and falling. Then, quietly, almost brokenly, I don't know. It felt like a punch to the gut. Emma swallowed hard, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Then maybe, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, we shouldn't do this at all. And before he could answer, before he could stop her, she turned and walked away. Emma didn't cry. Not that night. Not even the next morning. She went into the office, smiled when she had to, and acted like nothing had happened. If anyone noticed the way she avoided Liam's floor entirely, they didn't say anything. Max did, of course. "You're sulking," he announced one afternoon, plopping down in her chair uninvited. "I'm working," she said without looking up. "You're sulking and working," he corrected. "Multitasking. Very impressive." She sighed and finally looked up. "Max. Listen," he said, leaning forward. "I don't know what's going on between you and Bennett, but you look like someone stole your puppy. And you don't even like dogs." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. Because he wasn't wrong. Liam, for his part, threw himself into work. He stayed late every night, avoided her desk during the day, and pretended like he didn't notice the hollow feeling in his chest every time he caught a glimpse of her in the hallway. It was easier that way. Cleaner. At least, that's what he told himself. A week passed. Then two. By the third week, Emma was starting to think maybe this was it. Maybe they'd just go back to being coworkers. Maybe the universe was telling her to move on. So she tried. She went out for coffee dates. She forced herself to flirt with someone from marketing. She even agreed to let Sophie set her up with a friend of a friend. It was fine. He was nice. Polite. Smart. But when he kissed her goodnight outside her apartment, all she could think was, he's not Liam. Meanwhile, Liam had his own distractions. Work trips. Late nights. A few half-hearted dates that ended as soon as they began. But nothing stuck. Nothing worked. Because every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. The breaking point came during a late-night meeting. The client had requested a last-minute revision, and Emma found herself alone in the office at nearly midnight, staring at her screen and trying not to lose her mind. She didn't even hear him come in until he spoke. "You're still here," Liam said quietly. Emma froze, then forced a neutral tone. "Deadline," she said without looking up. There was a pause. Then the sound of footsteps as he crossed the room. "You missed a semicolon," he murmured, pointing at her screen. She wanted to snap at him. She wanted to tell him to go away. Instead, she just whispered, "Why are you here, Liam?" His answer was soft. "Because I can't seem to stay away." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Emma slowly turned to face him, her heart in her throat. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know," he said, stepping closer. "But tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away. Right now. For good." Her breath caught. She should have said it. She should have ended it. But she couldn't. Because she did want it. So much it scared her. What followed was different this time. No stolen glances. No pretending. This time, they stopped fighting it. They still kept it quiet, of course. HR emails were terrifying, but it didn't feel like a secret anymore. It felt like them. One night, curled up on her couch with takeout containers and a bad movie playing in the background, Emma found herself blurting out the question she'd been too afraid to ask. "What are we doing, Liam?" He glanced at her, brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she hesitated, then forced the words out. "Is this just temporary? Until it gets complicated again? Or are we? I don't know. Something." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for her hand. "I don't want temporary," he said softly. "Not with you." Something in her chest loosened. "Okay," she whispered. Of course, nothing about their situation was simple. There were still late nights and deadlines, still whispered arguments about whether they were being too obvious, still the ever-present risk of someone finding out. But for the first time, Emma didn't feel like she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. For the first time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. The real test came at the annual leadership summit. 3 days in a fancy hotel with the entire executive team, endless meetings, and zero privacy. It was torture. By the second night, Emma was ready to climb the walls. "I swear," she muttered to Sophie during the dinner reception, "if I have to listen to one more speech about synergy, I'm going to fake food poisoning." Sophie smirked. "Or you could just sneak off with your secret boyfriend." Emma choked on her champagne. "He's not." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "Please. I've known you for years, Em. You think I haven't noticed the way you look at him?" Emma opened her mouth, then closed it again. Sophie just grinned. "Relax. Your secret's safe with me. But seriously, figure it out. You deserve to be happy." That night, unable to sleep, Emma found herself wandering down to the empty hotel conference room where they'd been working earlier. Liam was already there, sitting alone with a glass of whiskey. "You couldn't sleep either," he said when she walked in. She shook her head and sank into the chair beside him. For a while, they just sat there in silence, the hum of the city outside the only sound. Then, softly, Emma said, "Sophie knows." Liam didn't even look surprised. "I figured. She's sharp." She told me to figure it out, Emma admitted. And are you? He asked, turning to face her. Emma met his gaze, her chest tight. I think so. In the quiet that followed, Liam reached for her hand. Emma, he said, his voice steady but soft, I don't care who knows. I don't care about the stupid rules or the risk. I want you. Whatever that looks like. However we make it work. Something in her finally broke, some wall she'd been holding up for months. And for the first time, she let herself believe it could really be that simple. By the end of the summit, everyone knew. Not because they told anyone, but because neither of them was particularly good at hiding the way they smiled at each other anymore. To their surprise, the world didn't end. HR sent a sternly worded email, of course, but after a quick meeting and a signed disclosure form, life went on. Months later, on a random Tuesday, Emma found herself back on the office roof with Liam, takeout containers balanced between them. You know, she said, nudging him with her shoulder, I never thought I'd be here. With you. Like this. He smiled, that rare, soft smile that still made her heart skip. Yeah, he said. Me neither. For a while, they just sat there, watching the city lights. Then Liam glanced at her, his expression unreadable. Emma, he said quietly, I'm in love with you. She froze. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her face. Good, she whispered. Because I'm in love with you, too. And for once, there were no doubts, no hesitations, no walls. Just them. Exactly where they were supposed to be.